We are back counting down the hours, the minutes, the seconds until the Aces host the Seattle Storm again Sunday, 1 p.m. Michelob Ultra Arena for the WNBA semifinals. And after a week-long break, in the words of Jesus and Mero, who we all miss tremendously, please welcome someone who is illustrious and creates the dopest of content, stories, and insight for WNBA.com, Dime Up Rocks, The Athletic, checking in from my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. Mark Schindler joins us. Mark, are you prepared for Sunday, my friend?
I'm definitely ready for Sunday, and Jesus, I need it even sooner after reminding me that Jesus and Mero's over. Like, I wasn't ready for that reminder today, but we're here now. So, how's everything on your end, man?
Yeah, we're good. I'm a little heartbroken having to put that in there, but that's why I paid homage with the illustrious. But we're good. We're excited. We got some breaking news. So this is airing for everyone who's tuned in live on the radio or listening to us on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcast. We are recording this Friday afternoon. Aces are in the middle of practice, and Coach of the Year is going to speak to the media here in about a half an hour. But that news just broke. So I guess we'll start off right there on what you've seen on the dynamic of her coming in, getting hired, getting the money, Mark Davis, all the support, and kind of switching everything that the Aces have done before in being a fast-paced, three-point shooting, run-and-gun style team and the most efficient offense in the league.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it all on the head, man. I think when I knew Becky was coming in, obviously, when Bill stepped down originally, I think that was – I mean, I wasn't entirely sure what to think of what Becky's system was going to be because, I mean, a coach can come in and say all the things they want in their opening presser, but until you see it play out on court, harder to see. But, I mean, off rip, I mean, they've been fantastic. They had, stretches where they were playing like the best offense in basketball. And they were, if I remember correctly, I think statistically they ended up the best offense in the WNBA since the 2019 Mystics, which are, I believe, the best offensive team basketball's ever seen. So, like, yeah, I mean, it's been really impressive to watch. I think, I mean, it's easy to point out just the taking more threes. Like that's a big part of it, but a lot of it's just the principles outside of that. How much they rely on drive and kick, the ability that they really take to spread everyone out. I mean, Katie Barnes from ESPN, they had a really good article today, feature on Kelsey Plum, and Kelsey Plum talked about, her sitting down with Becky before the season and then talking about what that was going to look like and changing up things. And ultimately, I did a feature on Jackie Young not too long ago and talking about her and the way that she's grown her game. I mean, being a Vegas person, like seeing the way that she's blossomed this year into a most improved player is largely because of her jump shooting. And, that's been a years-long process to get there. So I think this year you're just kind of seeing all of that come to fruition from every team. So, like, I mean, just to be transparent too, I'm an awards voter, and I voted Becky Coach of the Year for all this. Like, I think there were multiple, like, I mean, James Wade and Tanisha Wright were both well deserving in my opinion too. But I felt with how good the Aces have been all year, and especially considering like this is a team that's been good for a while, but to take that next step and to see how much Becky has been a part of that, talking to any of the players on the team. I felt like that was a pretty easy choice to me. So I think she definitely deserved it.
No, 100%. And you just won the hearts of Vegas 2 minutes into the interview. So well done, Mark. And as we kick this off, let's get straight into this Seattle Storm and Aces series that's going to kick off on Sunday. So I guess the simple question that I'm going to ask everyone on the show is, we've had a week to kind of dive in and look at the matchups, this, that, and the third. What are your initial thoughts on how this series is going to play out?
I mean, that's a great question. I actually am planning on going back and rewatching some of the games before Sunday, but I think I look at this very much so as the Aces kind of have the Storm's number, in my opinion. I mean, I think a lot of it's going to depend on, like, I mean, they definitely are going to have some, like, shooting variance is going to play a part in this. Like, they can't really afford to have a bad shooting game. Like, no team can, obviously, but I think, I mean, even when they played the Storm in that final-ish game of the season, I think both teams scored close to 100 points. Like, that was just, the offense was absolutely insane. Chelsea Gray was amazing. That's even with Jewel Lloyd being on kind of a heater again. Playing
she scored
back
38 that game.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that was career high for her. Like, we're starting to see her be her again, which huge for the Storm. But I think, again, just to point out, like, this Aces team was able to beat them even with Jewel finally clicking on all cylinders like she's capable of. I think there's just so much offense on this team. And again, I think a lot of people will point out the bench, but I just think even in that star-studded group in the starting lineup, they have so much in terms of players who can create from all areas of the floor that it's just so hard to match up with. Even with as good as Seattle's defense has been throughout the year, like they rely a lot on being able to put two players on the ball. But Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, they're adept at picking stuff apart if they get to the ball. If you have any kind of mismatch with Asia Wilson on the weak side or down low or even just isolated on the baseline or something, like that's easy money. That's another way to cause a defensive rotation or just easy points. Jackie Young is great attacking anywhere once she catches the ball and she makes good reads and decisions. Like, again, I think a lot's going to depend on Dearica Hamby coming back because I think they'll need her to match up with Brianna Stewart, but because she was pretty pivotal in guarding her in games earlier this season as well. But overall, I just think I look at this Aces team and what they're doing offensively right now and, clicking just enough defensively that I would probably be. I mean, I haven't made my official picks yet, but I'd be pretty comfortable taking the Aces.
Mark, you got about 10 minutes to make your official pick, okay? But first, we got to keep talking.
Fair enough.
Just to be transparent with you, and I'm waiting because in about a half an hour, Becky Hammond's going to talk to the media. Of course, about Coach of the Year, but just everything going into this series. What we heard from this morning here locally in Vegas is the GM, Natalie Williams, appeared on the radio station and said that Dearica is out for this series still because when the injury happened with the what was it, the bone, not the bone?
It's like it's like a deep bone bruise.
The bone bruise, excuse me, sorry. So when that happened 15 days ago. They said 2 to 4 weeks. Obviously, we're on the 15th day. If she's going to be out, that's going to play a huge role because I'll lay this out for you on both sides. I'll give you a concern for each and tell me how you feel about them. For the Aces, like you just brought up, I'm concerned about the size of Brianna and Tina Charles, especially from not only a fatigue factor and the lack of depth for the Aces, but also just the ability of, if they're going to have Asia on Tina, the quick fouls and things that can occur when you're guarding a big. So on that front for the Aces, that's a concern. And then for the Seattle Storm, playing Washington is kind of, to me, the polar opposite of playing the Aces. Washington's very methodical, very slow paced. They don't like to push it in transition. So for you, out of those two concerns I laid out for each team, which one is more concerning to you overall?
I mean, I think not having Dearica is huge. I know a lot of people can look at it and be like, well, she's like the one player who hasn't really been working. And yes, true. But I think what's difficult about this season, especially being that fifth player on the totem pole, like Dearica has been for much of the year, I think you lose a lot of things that she does well. Like we just mentioned, like defensively, that just adds another player who has mobility, who has size, who has length, that knows where to be, that has guarded Brianna Stewart a lot throughout the season, allows you to get kind of funkier in some of your defensive matchups too. Not having that hurts. Like, I think you're kind of just automatically putting the box like, all right, we kind of have to put Asia on her. Because I don't really think you want Kia Stokes on her if we're being, like, honestly, like, I think Kia's filled in pretty well. But even then, like, she got hobbled at the end of the Phoenix series, and I think she'll be okay to start the series now with how much time she's had off. But point being, like, they're very thin on the front court depth. Like, obviously, yes, Ileana Repair is going to be there, but she's pretty much more of a true five, especially how she can play defensively. So
she got banged up too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, this team definitely needed the time off. And like you mentioned too, the pace. Like, I think, again, not even that Seattle's like crazy quick, but I think they're a lot better at getting into more of an offensive flow than the Aces are. Like, that's my biggest issue with the Aces right now. Like, they have moments of looking like just insanely dominant, especially when they're able to get stops and force turnovers and get out in transition. They look fantastic. But when they just dribble the ball up in the half court and they can kind of get stagnant, and it feels like they forget to use everybody in their offense because they have so many quality players. And I think that kind of got mitigated in the last round because, I mean, you're playing Phoenix, so not to be unfair to them, but they're missing, three of their four best players. So that definitely has a big impact. But Chelsea Gray, being who she's been pretty much since the All-Star game, makes things different. But again, I think you're asking a lot to just fully rely on Chelsea Gray shooting. She shot 74% from the field in those 2 games against Phoenix. I think you're asking a lot to rely on that. So I think, like they have moments of like they try too hard to establish Asia in the post instead of, getting her going on the roll or just finding some more easier ways to get her looks. Like that's something I really want to see, especially too, like you just mentioned, like this Storm team has a ton of length and defensive versatility that, I mean, they can throw a ton of different looks at anybody on the team. So it will be really interesting to see how those things match up. And I think especially like hearing that Handy's going to miss the entire time, like that gives them a smaller margin for error for sure.
And the Storm are dealing with some injuries too. And if you haven't checked it out throughout the season, this man has been writing a lot of fantastic pieces. He brought up the Jackie Young one, of course, and you did the one on Gabby Williams, who to me, her and Rebecca Gardner in the first round of the playoffs, the way that they were clamping down on people was insane. Now, I don't know what the update is in terms of her coming back from the concussion. Obviously, she's got a week and she's been balling her ass off. But if she is going to play, in your opinion, what's the best way and what's the most effective way to maximize Gabby? Is it going to be being the primary on-ball defender, or is it guarding Kelsey Plum in the perimeter? Like, how would you use her to maximize her?
I think, honestly with her, I think it's doing kind of everything. Like, I'd imagine that she that's a good question. I mean, she probably gets the Kelsey assignment. And, I mean, last time we saw them play, she even got some minutes on Asia. Like, if you want to put Stewie help side so she can come over and like, I think that's something that we could see them do. Like, especially with Kia Stokes playing, like, you can just put Brianna Stewart on Kia Stokes and have her help off to muck up the lane. Like, there are a lot of things that they can do interestingly like that. But, I mean, I think what makes Gabby so interesting, part of why I wrote about her, is she does everything. Like you mentioned, like she's one of the best on-ball defenders in the league. She's incredible as a help defender as well. She's pretty impactful from pretty much anywhere on the court. And then, like, I think what was so big in that Mystics series, anytime, like, especially in that first game when you saw them starting to bog down in the half court and Seattle really, struggling a little bit because of how good the Mystics' defense was, like, they used her a ton to initiate sets and get things going. They used her as a screener. They do a ton of really funky stuff that just works because she knows, she just has a really good sense of spacing and how to make herself available and, kind of cheat against how defenses will play her because she's not really a shooter. So I think losing her hurts. Like, even if you can, quote unquote, like, help off of her and be comfortable doing it, like, okay, she's really good at finding gaps to exploit still. So I think if she's healthy, and I think it's not out yet, but a friend of mine who covers the team just tweeted that they're supposed to find out today. She didn't practice today, but they're supposed to get some kind of update on her from Noelle Quinn after practice. But yeah, I mean, having her is really huge, especially too because like this team is pretty guard heavy and pretty big heavy when you're looking at the aces. Like, they don't really have a lot of wings. Like, Jackie's really the only wing on the team. So having a player like Gabby who can, if she gets an opportunity to post up like Kelsey Plum or post up Chelsea Gray, like, it's not even necessarily that she's scoring. It's just like she can force the defense to have to react because she's strong, she's quick, and she makes good decisions with the ball in her hands. Like, she's really good at finding ways to use some of her weaknesses against teams.
And Mark, you bring up those guards that the Aces have. One thing I want to ask you on the flip side for the Storm and their defense is Sue Bird. And obviously, I just talked about the differences in Washington and the Aces' offense, and no disrespect to Washington, but dealing with the Aces is a whole nother set of issues. So my question, plain and simple to you, is the Storm going to be able to be put in a situation where they can, quote unquote, hide Sue Bird defensively?
That's a good question. I think a lot of it is going to be, and part of the reason why they do so much stuff with trapping and hedging and throwing to the ball is so that they don't have to put her on ball defending. Like, Sue is going to get, she doesn't have the foot speed anymore to be a good on ball defender, but honestly, like, she's still a very good off the ball defender. She's really good at, stunting at the nail. She calls out a lot of things for them defensively, like, kind of like, I don't know how much NBA coverage you do, but very similar to like what D'Angelo Russell did for the Timberwolves this year. And I think she actually does it to a higher level even. But Yeah, I think that'll be a really interesting chess match to watch, and I think that's part of like you're talking about. When you have a team that like if this Aces team is really able to play aggressively on defense and force some turnovers, and more importantly, just push the pace. Like I think that's really important to try and make it so a defense can't get set because when a defense is able to get set, when they have time to call things out and react, it's a lot harder to pick them apart. And I think like we've seen, I mean, especially like you mentioned with the Mystics, like the Mystics play the slowest pace in basketball. So they really let Seattle get back, and that made it that much harder on them. So I think especially for the Aces, like really need to see them ratchet up the pace. Obviously meaningfully, you can't just, run and gun for no reason. There has to be purpose behind it. But I think that's been a story for them all years. They're at their best when they're able to really blend pace and their defense together.
And two final questions. When we look at this series, what is going to be your X factor overall? Whether it's for the Storm, whether it's for the Aces, the one thing you're going to look out for as this gets underway.
That's such a good question. I think for me, I think the X factor for the Aces for me would probably like saying just their defense sounds like not enough. Like,
you sound like
mean,
Becky
like,
Hammond.
I think to me, well, yeah, I mean Becky Hammond in a sense, but I think it's more just like how are they going to play defense? Because I think we've seen like points like earlier this season, like their defense was phenomenal. They played really aggressively. They, they play Asia very close to the level of the screen, and they just were really good at finding ways to, even though they were small, they were really good at playing the gaps and just playing like that. That's the kind of stuff I want to see them get back to, particularly against the Storm, who are not great at forcing looks on the inside and trying to make them a team that really has to rely on their jump shooting. But I think that's where it goes into Jewell Loyd is the real X factor in this series for me. Like if Jewell Loyd is playing like she has the last 2 weeks, this makes that a much harder series for the Aces.
And to bring that up, she's kind of been the last two matchups against the Aces in the regular season. Obviously, we brought up the finale where she scored 38 points, but then that final game in Seattle, when she played 30 minutes. She had 1 point total. So, and you could just see on the offensive side, like the difference that makes. And that the regular season finale was amazing basketball. That was 109 to 100. It was pushing the pace, and her and Chelsea Gray were going at it. It was amazing. It was heavenly. But before we get you out of here, a two-part question. Number one, you said you're a vote getter. We're in Las Vegas. We got this woman on the team. She's going to be on the cover of some Ruffles chips. We really enjoy her. Her name's A'ja Wilson. We're just curious, did you vote for her for MVP? And then two, with the Final Four set, I need predictions on both series.
Okay. Well, yeah, first and foremost, I'm happy to say I did vote A'ja Wilson MVP.
Smart man.
I actually be on the lookout for it too. I have a feature coming out on her on Sunday, the morning of the game. I just talked to her a couple days ago. She's fantastic. I love A'ja. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. As for actual predictions, I think right now, man, I think I would take the Aces in 5 currently. That could change, but I think that's where I would go right now. On the other side, I'm feeling probably Sky in 4, as much as I really would like to personally see. I would love to see Connecticut win, like just because, I mean, I'm biased because I just did a really big feature on Alyssa Thomas and was out in Connecticut for a week, but
WNBA.com, check that out.
Yeah, I mean, just like mainly, it really feels like this is the last time we're going to see that team together. Everything that's coming out from there, at the way Kurt Miller's talking, the way that Alyssa talked, like it kind of feels like this is the last chance we're going to see from this team to really make some noise. Everything has kind of gone against them. That said, I'm still not picking them to win this. That could change up, but again, I think I'd probably take the Sky in 4 because I just think it's going to be a really difficult matchup. But to be fair too, like what I'm most excited about, both of these matchups were some of the best matchups 1-to-1 that we saw the entire year. Like every single game between the Sun and Sky was single-digit points. The Sky won all 4, but it was very close. All of the games were very fun. Same thing with Storm and Aces. Other than I think the first game they played was right after Stewie got out of COVID protocols, if I remember correctly. So they were a little bit hampered, but I'm just really excited to watch these series play out.
No, 100%. What are we? We are a day away when you're hearing this, wherever you're getting this. And Mark, before we get you out of here, Just a quick plug on where everyone can find you, social media, all your writing and all your features and everything. Make sure you get your plugs in.
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on. It was really great to connect, man. You can find me on Twitter at mg_Schindler. That's mg_SCHINDLER. I'm really active there. That's where I'm going to post most of my stuff. Find me at WNBA.com, Dime Up Rocks. I have a Patreon as well. Yeah, so thanks so much for having me on, man.
No, of course. I appreciate the X's and O's and breaking it down, and hopefully our Aces make the final so we can have you back. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.